do you want to introduce yourself and say, like, tell us a little bit more what you do and what is it that the strategy studio does?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Well, firstly, thank you for the invitation and for having me on.
Yes, of course.
So I'm a small business strategist. So what that means is I work with creative entrepreneurs to make things happen in their business. So for some people, that might be getting the wording on their website right so they can connect with their ideal client and communicate the messaging that they need to.
Mm-hmm.
For others, that might be finding the best way to use their social media channels, or it could be coming up with a strategic plan to like get some big idea they have off the ground. So I kind of, whatever it is that small business owners are struggling with, I help them find a way to get there, is usually how I explain what it is that I do.
That's really nice. And I'm so glad I found you, because I think this will be a long journey.
So thank
And
you.
I'm excited to work with you as well. So let's dive right into it. So
Yeah.
what do you think is a brand, and what's the difference between a brand and a logo and a graphic designer? Like what is a brand?
Yeah.
What would you say as a professional?
So I like to consider a brand the way the world sees you. So I think for most of our businesses these days, whether you're a product-based business or a service-based business, the opportunity to have face-to-face or personal interaction with a client or a customer is small, and that's at the point that they've committed to investing in you or your product. So
Yeah.
brand is really the opportunity that you have to connect with your target client before they've converted into being that customer or client. So it is your website, it's your social media channels, it's what I call any touch point, which is any interaction that someone can have with you. Those things all collectively become your brand. The logo is really just the icon or the mark that people use to visually identify you at a quick glance. So all of these things work together, but your brand is so much more than the logo because it's the perception that people can have of you or how they can get to know you before they've really got to know you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that sounds good. So it's basically just like what they feel about you, what they think about you, and what they talk about you, right?
Yeah, exactly. So the graphic designer really comes into creating the visual identity of what that brand is. So graphic designer, hugely important because there's only so much you can project about who your business is without having that physical designed presence. So if you look at my Instagram feed, for example, hopefully you can get a sense of who I am through what I share, what I talk about, but then you're also going to see my brand colors quite clearly coming through, and that the role the graphic designer played, thank you, Elizabeth, in helping bring all of that together. So there's graphic design are hugely important in the development of the logo and your brand identity. There's so much more to the visual component than just that physical logo that goes in your little Instagram circle or on your website.
Definitely. But
Altogether,
that's how I connected to you. Like I need to figure out how I met you first. But it was definitely through Instagram. Somebody linked your profile or something in the stories, and then I'm like, let me check it out. And then what made me connect to you is like the personal captions and the photos. Like you post a few, let's say, some graphics and some other photos, and then like every third or every second image in the profile is something about you, like some funny ones, you drinking coffee, you arranging something, and it makes it much more personal, and you feel like, oh, I know this person. She seems nice, and like yeah. So that's how I felt like, okay, let me reach out to her because I feel like we have the same message for people. We want to help entrepreneurs, especially for me, it's especially women. For me with images, for you with strategy. So I thought it's a good yeah, a good fit to kind of work on a brand guide together that we have as a free downloadable one, like downloadable. And yeah, so we thought a live would be a good idea to um, go a little bit in depth.
definitely. Hi, Ashley. Sorry, I've just seen Ashley jump on. Thanks for being
Yeah.
with.
Yeah, there's some people I don't know, but it's nice to connect to new followers. I mean, new audience. Yeah, so guys, if you have any questions with like as we go through the topics, feel free to drop them in the comment section, and then we'll go get to it at the end of the brand at the end of the interview. Too many brand words. So let's go to the next question. How would you say, like, how can people handle imagery for service-based businesses? Hi, Lydia. So let's say I don't know, what can we say?
Me.
Somebody who, yeah, for example, yeah, you don't have tangible product, right? You don't sell products in your shop or on your on your website. So how would you advise people who offer services to brand themselves, to market themselves? Yeah.
Yes, great question. And I think that's one of the biggest struggles I hear people communicate with me. They're like, I don't share on social media because I don't have photos and I don't know what would I post. And that's where I always say invest in brand shoots. And I do one probably once every 3 or 4 months. And it's just a way of having fresh seasonal imagery. And to be clear, you could do that all in one go. You could plan your outfits and do different seasonal photos and get it all done in one go. I just choose to break it up so it gives me time to think about new things
New
I can do
ideas.
into my brand shoot. But yes, if you're a service-based business, getting that as getting your face in your feed, as I like to call it, as it is about finding different, being a bit creative to find different ways to communicate what it is you do. You always have tools of the trade. And there might not be what I call tools of the trade. There might not be a lot of them. For me, it's probably my laptop and a pen and a notebook and my cell phone. So there's always going to be pieces that you can use, but that's why you work with a photographer that specializes in brand photography, because they have ways to make those things become interesting and not just a laptop and a cell phone and a pen. So
Yeah.
and the imagery they will create for you, again, it isn't just, some people say to me, well, can't I just go and get new headshots done? And it's not the same thing. You can get new headshots done if you need a new portrait picture for profile photo for Instagram or LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Not the same thing. And I'm sure you can probably speak to this a bit better than I can. But giving people an idea that you need more than this. This is like getting your what.
Yeah, so that will explain a little bit the difference between just having new portraits and headshots and doing like the full branding shoot. So the difference I would say is when I do like a full brand shoot with my clients, I kind of dive like a little bit deeper into the business itself. So they get a questionnaire, they have to answer certain questions, and then work out the brand message, kind of what are the emotions you wanna provoke, or like have the client feel when they look at your images or at your feed or at your website. Who's your like ideal customer? Like what is your ideal audience? Who do you want to speak to? So like we go through a whole kind of exercise schedule kind of thing, and then yeah, then according to the audience, the emotions they want to evoke, all these things, we decide, okay, where are we going to shoot, which outfit are we going to choose, which colors are we going to pick, and I'm hearing a sudden clicking in my, do you hear that as well, like a sudden click
No,
all the time? So I'm wondering what that is.
no, I
Can
don't.
you? Okay, I hope you guys can hear me well, but it's kind of annoying, but maybe it's just my earphones. So yeah, and then we start with headshots just for the person to get warmed up and to just like relax and settle in and start to enjoy the session. And then we create scenes. Scenes with items, with props, to create an environment that reflects your brand or your brand actually.
Yeah.
And then we choose like different locations and we go out, we include nature, we include office, and we include all kind of different scenes. that will reflect your brand or your brand message or your brand identity, whatever that is. So, and let's say for service-based businesses, like it depends who your audience is. For example, let's pick another service-based industry.
Wedding
Wedding planner, yeah. Although that is easy, like you go to nice cafes, you have like wedding props, you have like of course also a laptop, maybe some drawings where they draw um the scene or whatever, the tables. But let's say like a psychiatrist,
or
a
an account.
psychiatrist
Yeah.
or an accountant, yeah. A psychiatrist, you can't post images of sad or depressed patients or your clients because of the like you're not allowed to share those things online, right? Or share names. So what could you do? So yeah, you could post a lot about yourself and about yourself, like you walking, you drinking coffee or tea, whatever you like doing, or you sitting together with friends and family, kind of getting to know your personality, which helps the customer or the client to create a connection to you and like see, okay, do I feel drawn to that person? Do you think like can I open up to that person and trust that person with my like inner problems? And then you could like do still life photos of with and play with the words, for example, a letter board where you just like write maybe poems or like, some sayings, and then just basic items that could speak to clients. Let's say a still life of flowers next to the bed, or just like a messy bed and like crumbs and coffee like spilled over, and kind of explaining like the day is bad and everything went bad and you messed up whatever, you poured your coffee, just like kind of some because not everything is beautiful and styled and what, especially for those kind of clients. And then you just like create messy images that represent a bad day, how you feel. And then you can use that image and write captions for it, how you can turn a bad situation into something beautiful, and how you can overcome those anger feelings that when they arise because of this and that. And so you can like I get creative when you throw an idea at me. So I work that out with my clients. And I don't think it's difficult to create imagery, beautiful brand imagery for service-based clients. It's just that you need a little bit more time to think about how you would set it up and what images you would create. Yeah.
Yeah, and probably the one thing that I'd add is that that's often a time that it's worth bringing back in your graphic designer to potentially make you some collaterals or some physical pieces that you can
Oh
incorporate
yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I usually have, each time I do a brand shoot, have my graphic designer use her creativity to come up with some new and interesting ways that I can incorporate key language and key kind of terminology that I use. So I think
That's a good idea. That's a good idea.
jigsaw puzzle, so I had a way to visually represent wanting to talk about brand strategy as an example.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll find pulling in that person that already knows about your brand, which is often your graphic designer, can be a really great asset and help you get more content to get even more out of your brand shoot.
Definitely. And she can create maybe some mood boards or some, yeah, some get some prints, some visuals or something that you can like print out and incorporate into the shoot, like as tangible things or sayings or like your brand words or something. Definitely. Yeah, definitely. So what do you do once you have all those images? I think you're better at explaining that than me. Um, so now you did this, let's say you did this full brand shoot of 6 hours and like you planned ahead for the whole year, what to do with the images. But now where do I start using them? And I'm like, this is overwhelming. Like, what do I write? And I have so many beautiful images that I like, and now where do I start? What do I do?
There's two things that I want to talk about here. One is pain points, and the second is your brand story. So if you're not familiar with pain points, pain points are often phrased as what is keeping your ideal client up at night, and which can sound a bit dramatic. What we mean by that, what are the things that they're struggling with in their life or in their business? It kind of depends what your business is. So, for example, another business owner might be struggling with things like, how do I raise my prices to get to where I want in business? I can't connect with my target client. I don't know how to use my social media channels correctly to grow my following, or I'm posting over and over and I feel like I'm getting no traction. They are all pain points that my ideal client might experience. So put yourself into the shoes of your ideal client or customer and think about what are the struggles in their life or in their business. And it's going to be completely different for everyone. But I always say, if that's something you're struggling with, send me a DM and I'll try and give you a few examples to get you into that right way of thinking. But the reason I talk about pain points is every pain point is an opportunity. And what I mean by that, every answer you can come up with as to what is my ideal client or customer struggling with, the answer to that question, which you will obviously have, is an idea for a caption. So the next point, and I promise this will all come full circle and make sense. The next, making sure that you have a brand story. And a brand story is essentially, it's a bit like an elevator pitch. It's that short, sharp way that explains who you are, what you do. And there's kind of 3 parts to a brand story. So the first part of a brand story is what is that common pain point that's experienced by your ideal client or customer. The next part of it is the transformation that you can take them on to help them fix that problem. And the third part of it is the resolution. So the reason I like to have that kind of brand story in the back of your mind, it's like the overarching reminder of what it is you do, who you connect with, how you make their life better. So, and probably answer a lot of the pain points. So when you put those together, I like to try and come up with what I call themes or story threads. And you should be able to come up with between 5 or 10 of these themes or story threads that are going to give you ideas for what you can talk about on social media. So I'm a Google Docs fan, as I know you are. Thank you.
Yeah, I love Google Docs.
Google Doc, and it kind of has my brand themes in it. And whenever I just get an idea, I write it down. So I kind of have this like working document of ideas, so you don't get that like writer's block every time you open Instagram and need to say something. But the idea being, I also talk about having a serve, 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 sell mentality. So often
that's a good one. Yeah, maybe share a bit about that one.
Yes, I'll explain that, because often people get all of this amazing new brand imagery, and then it's like, well, what do I do? Oh my gosh, I like tell people that this is my business, this is what I do, this is who I am, and that is all great. But all that that's doing is what I call shouting into the void. You're like, look at me, look at me, look at me. And the end result, no one ever looks at those people. So
people get annoyed, and they just like scroll and they don't stop and read, because it's like, oh, just somebody else trying to sell at me. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So the serve, 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 sell. I've lost how many times I said serve. The point is you serve a lot more than you sell. So say that you have 4 interactions with the brand. 3 of those interactions should be serving them and making their life better, to the ratio of 1 to them. And then people say to me, well, like, how do I serve? Like, how do I serve on Instagram? And there's so many ways that you can serve on Instagram, and it depends what your business is. So you can inspire people with the beauty you create. You can educate them about different aspects of how you could make their life easier or their business easier. Again, this depends on what your profession is. You can motivate them, you can humor them, you can help them. So it's just thinking about all of those kind of story themes that you came up with when you were thinking about all the pain points that your ideal customer or client is experiencing. How you can answer those and find different ways to add value to their life. Because if you think about the Instagram accounts that, or businesses on Facebook or whatever it is that you enjoy following, you probably enjoy following them because they add value to your online experience. Probably can't actually remember the last time they tried to sell you something. And if they did, you were completely okay with it because it's given you so much value. So to answer your question about what do I do with all my imagery, on the technical side of things, I highly recommend getting a scheduling app where you can kind of visually map out how the images can all work together, which I'm sure in a second you can speak more to. But laying those out, but at the same time, I would be, or in the background while you're waiting for the photographer to edit all those images and get them to you, I'd be starting that brain dump document, as I call it, and putting in all of those themes and ideas and pain points and start thinking of all the different ways you can write captions that can serve and add value to the online experience of your target client or customer.
Yeah. One question to this serve mentality, or I totally agree with that. But what would you say, like, I mean, we all have this this fear in our head. Somebody will copy our ideas and take our tips and our tricks and educational stuff that we put out there. They will take it and copy it and make it their own. What would you say to that? Like, yes, we can like serve and help people and make their life better, but obviously there's like others who do the same like us, and some are just there to copy and to just like take it off. What would you say? Like, how can one deal with that kind of fear mentality of other people just copying us? Like, do you think that happens a lot, or is the value that people get way more than the copycats?
It's a good question, and the honest answer, and I can only speak for how I handle this, and I would exactly say if someone asked me the question, I honestly pay no attention to it. And the reason for that is I think it happens far less than we fear it happening, is the truth. But I think the other thing is, I often ask a client when they're scared of something like that, I say, what do you think the feed of your ideal client or customer looks like? Because what happens when we work in business, we start to follow and interact with all of these other brands that are similar to us. So if you're a photographer, you have a lot of other online photography, other people in the photography world online that you follow. And you follow other friends in your industry. And so as a result, you're exposed to a lot more of that kind of content. But if you think about your ideal customer or client, they're probably not following that same circle of people. So like if I'm working out all of the free content that I share on my Instagram account and all of the advice I give, if I was worried that someone else might steal that, well, firstly, I'd miss the opportunity to connect with the hundreds of people that I do on a daily basis.
Because of this one person,
One person. And the other thing is that one person that's stealing it, chances are my ideal client isn't also following them. So I say, it's unfortunate, it's really annoying and disrespectful, but let it go, because you've got more to from sharing than you do from holding back out of fear.
Of course, because, and then another thing to add is you will be always ahead, like one step ahead of that copycat, right? Because let's see, you got an idea of your captions and you're writing it down, you're helping your audience, your ideal client, and that person goes and copies it and starts something on that one, but then you're one step ahead and you create something new. Because like if you are creative and passionate to help and serve your audience, you'll be always creating new ideas and ways of how to serve your audience instead of selling. One thing that I like to explain to my kind of clients or friends who complain, oh, like nobody's buying and I'm selling and I'm putting out my stuff, but nobody's booking or nobody's buying my stuff. And Jasmine Star always says, pretend you're going to a party and you come into the room and you're like, hey, I'm Tanja and I'm selling this kind of photos and I'm doing weddings and like buy me, book me, who's engaged? And like imagine you would do that and people would be like, oh my gosh, I hope she's leaving soon. But that's what we do on Instagram. But like pretend you go into Instagram or Facebook or Pinterest and just pretend it's a big party with a lot of people. And when you do that, like, hey, book me, I'm here and I'm there and like come join me. So it's like it's weird. You wouldn't do that when you go into somebody's house or into somebody's party, but you constantly do that on Instagram instead of saying, hi, my name is Tanja. I'm doing weddings and branding portraits. How about you? What do you like doing? And like, so that's how you connect, right?
Yes, I love that. That's such a good way of thinking about it.
Yeah, it's like we just forget that the online world like contains has real people in it, and it's not just like numbers, and it's not just like any photos, profile photos. These are actual real people behind it who might read your captions and who feel annoyed by you just like selling all the time. So I like that serve and then sell mentality. So yeah, try to add value to people, and instead of like yelling at them like, hey, buy me.
One
Yeah.
thing that made me think of when you were saying that is I often find that people have businesses that have a product or a very visual business, whether that's a designer or a photographer or whatever it might be. Often they are hesitant or don't feel like they don't need to put their face in their feed, as we call it, or put photos of themselves out there because they have so much content. It almost sometimes doesn't even occur to them because they
Yeah.
very luckily have so much imagery to work with. But the thing that I'd say on that is, yes, you're building up a very strong online brand by doing that, but you're not building up personal connection. So especially when often you're like, let's say you're a business that's like a designer or a photographer, the process of someone working with you still involves them personally working with you.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
you still need to get to know who you are. So I often tell this story. It's kind of embarrassing, but it's me. It's what I do. And when I'm looking for a new service provider of some sort, and I'm going to tell the example of me looking for an accountant, I hate numbers. I love words. Numbers are not my thing, and doing anything accounting related stresses me out. So I wanted to find a small business accountant who I could ask what I consider to be the really dumb questions to, but not feel stupid. And I wanted someone to put it into language that I understand. But it's like, to be honest, a lot of accountants don't have amazing websites. They talk in accountant talk that makes no sense to me, and therefore I'm not going to book them. But when I was going through this process of looking for a new accountant, I started also looking for their profile photos. So I wanted to know, what does this potential accountant look like? And I can openly and honestly admit that I chose my accountant based on whether or not their photos on their images and the profile images of them made them look approachable.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Much of that, especially when you're a service-based business or you serve people in some way through your business, they want to know who it is they're connecting with and who they're serving with. And great brand imagery of yourself is such an important way to do that.
I heard once people say like, if you show too much of yourself, it's not like it's not, you don't seem like to be a big company or like a big brand or a big name or something, because like all the big names out there, they don't show their own face. They kind of hide themselves, but they show like other people as a brand. And they feel like, okay, in order to be like super, how do you call it? I'm missing the word.
Yeah, but
Somebody thinking you're a big name or you're a big company, you can't show yourself. That's like stepping down and showing, like it's kind of, you're trying to gain attention and stuff. So big names shouldn't show the face behind it. But I think that's not the case anymore. I think like the trend or in this time and age, people want to connect, right, with the boss of the face of the brand. So what are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I think that firstly, you'll find that a lot of companies that probably don't do that, the owner of that company has their own very public profile where they do share that kind of content. But the other thing that I would ask, if you're thinking about that, like, well, I want to be perceived as this big company, and if I put myself out there, it's very clear that I don't work with anyone else and it's just me. But I would say, what do you have to lose from that? Is anyone not going to book you because your company's not big enough? I just don't believe that's true. I believe that people are going to be like, oh, wait, she owns it and I get to work directly with her. Like, until you get to the point that you, in reality, are bigger, I just don't really believe that there's a huge benefit in trying to have that perception. Like, for example, my business is called The Strategy Studio. And the biggest reason for that is no one can pronounce or spell my name. So if I called my business TahnésSanders.com, nobody would ever find me.
Yeah.
I'm very open about the fact that at this point in my business, it's just me. And maybe one day there will be other strategists that work alongside me, and I will happily share and celebrate them if and when that happens. But I just don't believe that I'm losing business by being myself and being out there in my feed. And I would say that anyone that's scared of that, just try it and then see, because I don't think that you'll lose by doing it.
No, like for a long time, I was like, I'm like, no, I'm not showing myself. Like, I felt so uncomfortable in front of cameras. Like, I'm tall and thin, and like in school, I was bullied being like thin. They're like, oh, your parents don't have money to buy you food, and like you're like a giraffe. And I'm like, I felt horrible. So I was putting on clothes who made me look like big and fat and like round. And whenever I had a photo shoot and the photographer wasn't able to direct me or like guide me in a way for me to feel comfortable, so I was always like bending to make myself be shorter.
Yeah.
And on images, it looks horrible. Like I didn't have a nice posture, and like um they're like, do whatever you love. I'm like, I don't know what I love. I hate being in front of the camera. I look like tall and thin and like I'm not. So I just felt horrible. I'm like, I'm not showing my face. I'm not showing myself. And it was like it took me a long time and like a lot of inner work to start accepting myself for who I am and like how I look. And I'm like, okay, this is how I am. Other people would like to be that thin, and me, I'm struggling having that kind of look. And I'm like, okay, start loving yourself and saying nice words to yourself. And it took me like 1 or 2 years to slowly
Make
fall
that.
in love.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like, okay, and the more I got in front of the camera, I'm like, okay, I'm doing this as a training. Like, I'm asking my sister or another friend, hey, can you take a few portraits of me, just to start like getting used to that feeling of looking at myself, right? And like, oh, this is normal. I mean, this is how I look like, and I'm like, like accept and start loving yourself. And I think Maru, like Kim just
Yeah.
wrote, I'm showing my face and the feed a lot makes me feel like I'm saying, look at me, and makes me a bit uncomfortable. Yeah, that's the same feeling that I had. I'm like, okay, all these people showing themselves, it's like, they don't, they need somebody to boost their self-esteem. And I was thinking so bad about people posting photos about themselves. And now I'm starting to do that myself. And I'm like, okay, this helped me to connect with so many other people who like now know who I am, because I have like a foreign last name and people like Kibogo, Kibogo, who's that? And like, what's that? And like me sharing about myself, and it does, it has nothing to do with look at me, look at me. It's
Right.
you giving the people the opportunity to meet you and get to know you. And I like to give that example when, let's say, you are a shop owner and you have a bridal boutique, or you have a shoe store or whatever, and you're the owner and you don't have any employees yet, so you have to be yourself at the counter. And so let's say you want to be super nice and you open the door for the customers, you let them in, and then as soon as they come in, you hide yourself under the counter and you like, and then you pull up a smiley and say, hey, and like, I don't want to show myself. I'm ugly, I'm fat, I'm thin, I have pimples and whatnot, and my nose and my ears. But feel free to look around and buy this and just like put it here on the counter. But like you hide, I'm like, this person would run out the door and think like, okay, I need to call a psychiatrist. This person is insane. But that's how we behave on Instagram, on social media, right? Until I realized that I'm like, oh my gosh, you are sick. I mean, like, you gotta start loving yourself and like show yourself, because brides, they feel insecure and they don't know if they look beautiful. They want, or like clients, especially women, they want to feel beautiful in front of the camera, and they want to feel comfortable. But if
Mm-hmm.
I can't present that, and if I can't show them my insecurities and talk about that, how am I expect them to book me or to feel safe with me, right?
Yes.
So yeah, that's
And
for you, Maru, Kim.
yes, to that, Kim, I think Kim is a great example of this. If obviously Instagram's changed a bit now, and you can't always see the amount of interest, number of likes someone's photo has, and I actually think that's a great thing. But as a business owner, Kim, I would say if you go back and look at any time you've posted a photo of yourself in your feed, I promise you that it has more interaction than a lot of other images that you have on there. So,
Definitely.
and I think that's just proof that people want to see the person behind the business, and they want to get you and they want to interact with you. And as icky as it can sometimes feel and unnatural and completely against what you believe in terms of like, I'm not a salesman, like selling is just not in me. It's just not, doesn't come naturally for me, but connecting with people does. And I love talking, if you can't tell. I love having that
You're
interaction
sweet.
with getting people aware of who I am and seeing my face is such a great way to do that. So I think that you're so right. It's just about having the confidence to like kind of push aside or overcome those negative feelings about putting yourself out there and thinking about the benefits and the gains that you can make instead.
Yeah.
You were right.
Plus, yeah. Plus, you know, I mean, like we want to have a successful business. We want to be fully booked and have a lot of amazing clients and customers and whatnot, and a filled bank account. Like, who doesn't want that? I mean, but it doesn't just come like, I mean, there are like 1 or 2% where it comes naturally. You don't have to do anything. But who knows what you did before that in order to have that circle or that customer base. So, and I think like in this day and age, like there's so much internet, like people are on social media, they barely like have this human connection because it's always like this and like, so when you're able to put yourself out there and like create this human connection or give people the chance to connect to you personally, you are way more like, you have more bonus points, I would say, because you're not afraid of talking to somebody. And people crave that because they miss human connection. And that will be more and more in the future, I would say. So if you are able to learn and unlearn this mindset or this thinking, oh, if I put myself out there, it's selfish and people think it's about me, me, me. Yes, of course it's about you because people want to know you and it's good. And you shouldn't be afraid of that. I mean, it took, I'm talking now as if I never had that problem, but it took me like, this is my 8th year of business. And it's, I would say this year is the first year I'm getting comfortable speaking and showing myself. And I'm like, I don't care what my voice sounds like, how I look like. I'm here to help people and I want to connect to more people. I want to get to know more and new clients. And I will not get that if I step out of my comfort zone and start showing up. Otherwise, I will just like have my same circle of friends and followers and business clients. If I don't go the extra mile, why would the client go and come the extra mile and get to know me if I don't put myself out there? So, yeah.
And one more thing that you just made me think of is I find a lot of clients say, but I don't want my personal life to be on Instagram or
That's a good,
maybe on my private account I do, but like I don't want to do a day-by-day, blow-by-blow of looking after my kids and being a mum, and I don't want my husband to be my feed. Like, and that is absolutely okay. When we talk about putting your face in your feed, you can have your face in your feed and only ever talk about yourself in the capacity of a business owner. You don't have to share your life story of your family in order to bring your personality into your brand. So don't think that when we talk about putting yourself into your brand, putting your face out there, we're saying you need to tell your life story. And
no.
Yeah, and I think that's something that people think. They're like, well, as soon as I'm posting photos of myself, does that mean I need to start endlessly talking about myself? And no, you don't. Like, my face is in my feed a lot, and occasionally my husband and my daughter will pop up, but they pop up in the context of me talking about my work. So I don't overshare a lot about my personal life, and that's kind of the way I choose to do it. And you can go as far or not as far as you want, but don't let that fear of not wanting to share too much be the reason you don't put your face out there, because there is absolutely a way to do it. Put on your face as business owner hat.
Yeah. I mean, you can look at it like sharing personal insight about yourself or your business. You can see it as let's say you cook a meal, and that dish or that meal, whatever, is your business, and it has different ingredients, right? And that personal touch or that personal face or the personal insight of whatever that might be is like the spices, like the extra Provence herbs that you add in there, right? To make it spicy and to make it interesting and like, that tastes good. What kind of flavor is that? Like, so think of that as like your business as a super beautiful, yummy meal. And it has different ingredients. It has the sales, it has the Instagram, it has social media marketing, it has the brand strategy, the brand message, it has your website. So, and your personal story or insight, that's like, let's call it the Provence herbs that you add in there to give it that extra flavor. And people are like, that's interesting. So And
Yeah.
I'm not sharing like so many, like if you read through my personal things, yeah, I share about my insecurities because I find it's important to share about it because of photography. Many people are afraid of being in front of the camera. So it depends what kind of business you have. So look into yourself and your business and think, what could I share personal? Or like, how about other clients that have shared about this and this and what have, you don't have to name, like to say names, but um, I mean, even this big guys, like I like referring to Jasmine Star because she helped me a lot and like putting myself out there and doing the work. She's not like you think she's sharing so much about herself and her family, but if you think of it, she's only sharing about three things about her personal life, like her dog, her mom that she had cancer, and how she met her husband. But actually, I don't know anything else about her, but you feel like you know her, like she lives next door, but she's actually sharing the same three stories all over again because those stories made an impact or helped her jumpstart her business or do something about it. And like that she dropped out of law school. And you can, and that kind of, I think that is part of her brand story or her brand message or whatever. And you can do the same. Think about what in your personal life made you start your business, or like what makes you run your business, or what fuels you, and then share those over and over again, just in different stories and put it in different imagery. And then people will think they know you, but you're not oversharing. You're not like like sharing each fight you have or each depressions you have or whatever. Like who cares? Nobody wants to hear all the bad stories all the way, but just like pick a few nice ones and like repeat them. So
Definitely. And I think if you haven't been convinced yet that you need to put your face in your face, the one thing that I will say is, if you consider when you're trying to weigh up a decision between two people, whether it's picking between an accountant or whether it's deciding which photographer to book or whatever it might be, when you're trying to compare two businesses side by side, I would say, even if it's subconscious, a lot of the reasons that you'll be swayed one way or the other will be the personal connection you feel like you have. Like,
yeah,
oh, I trust that person. And
yeah,
giving them that face to connect with is just such an easy way to help build that trust.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you're saying it. It's like it's happening subconsciously, right? By choosing from whom to buy. Your brain doesn't like new things, something he doesn't know. And if you feel like you know that person, your brain, oh, I'm comfortable with her, I know her, so buy from her. You're not realizing it, but if you kind of analyze a little bit like your buying habits and go into the feeds, you're like, oh, I'm buying because I feel like I know that person.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yes. And that's the thing. We buy products or we connect with brands or we book someone's service because we feel drawn to. It's so much more emotional than anything else. So
Yeah, definitely.
and this is a little fact that we had in our downloadable that we created, but in a study of over 1 million Instagram images, they found that images that contain faces were 38% more, between 30 and 40% more likely to receive more comments than images that didn't have. And that doesn't always mean your face. That could be the face of your clients or people that you've taken imagery of. There's a million different ways.
Yeah.
But people like human interaction.
Yeah, that's true.
Social media.
Yeah. So I think we've covered all the questions that we had, right? The topics that I mean, I can like share a little bit like how I plan my
Yeah, I was
my
going to say,
posts.
the one question I was going to ask for you is if you could explain a little. I know you talked about when you get the delivery of the images, we talked about what you're going to say, but can you maybe explain a little bit about how to visually make those work in your feed?
Yeah. So I like to use OnLater. It's an app that you can use on your phone and on your desktop. And you can have like all the three social media accounts like Instagram, Facebook, and Pinterest in there. And then I drag and drop all the images that I think I can post or that might be a nice post for the next 2 to 3 months. and then I can like just have them there, and then it has like a little screen like you on your phone, and then you can just drag and drop the images wherever you feel like they look good. And then you can go over to the calendar mode and have the month section, and then you add all the 3 social media platforms. Like you just click on the plus, and then you have them all 3 linked together. And then you just drag the image into the day where you want to post it, and then it opens up a window, and then you just like type in your captions or whatever you want to write. And then the cool thing is that it has the captions in all of the 3 social media platforms. And then you can just add the hashtags for Instagram and shorten it a little bit for Pinterest, and just add the link to where it should lead back, like for Pinterest. So Kim, it's later. I like later because later is like, I think it's a little bit more a little bit ahead than Planoly, but I used Planoly in the beginning, but I found it a little bit, I was missing some parts. So, but I think they're like equally good at the moment. So yeah, and
I was going to say, so a question for you then. So when you're you've dropped in, let's say the 3 months or whatever it might be of imagery, what are some of the things you're thinking about when you're like visually planning it? So like, are you thinking about not putting the same like style of photos side by side, or what are you thinking about in terms of color or people in images, those kind of things?
Yeah, it depends what I want to write about it. So let's say now we are going towards fall and Christmas. So it's like fall and winter coming up. So I'll pick like more fall colors, or like see if I want to advertise maybe some family shoots or some fall engagement shoots, whatever. And depends like what is my next big topic I want to talk about in a series of 4 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever. And then I'm trying to break it up a little bit. So I have like a full body shot, like people with full body in there, kind of wide angle shots, close-ups, faces, portraits, and then detail shots in between. And so like I've been posting a lot about branding the past month, because I was launching my branding photos, my branding collection. But I'll go back now to post like add in weddings again and engagement shoot, because it's now the season where people are getting engaged and brides are looking for their wedding photographer. So I'll go back and post about the weddings that I had this year, some tips and like tricks for next year for the bride as she goes and plans her wedding day. But yeah, so I choose like the colors according to the season we're in, let's say summer or fall, or so then I will choose the detailed photos accordingly. Let's say a nice tea mug, some scones or something that represents the season I'm in and how I'm feeling. And then I'll break it up to like wide angle shot, close up, portraits, details, like macro shots. So
Thank you.
yeah, so and I also use Google Doc to brain dump and to think about what I want to talk about. But the cool thing about later is it has like on that specific day you want to post, you can just add notes. So let's say you can plan like your whole month and add notes what you want to talk about. And then once you have that done, you can just drag and drop the images and then write your whole captions, or you can pre-write your captions in the notes. And then you connect all the 3 accounts so that you don't have to go into each account and write the caption or copy paste them. You can just like have them all together and like write them for like once for all the 3 accounts.
Love it.
So thank you so much for staying up that late, and I really enjoyed myself. I really enjoyed the time with you, and can't wait to work with you and yeah, connect in the future.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for everyone that's joined, and I look forward to doing this again. This was fun. Thank you.
Yeah, have a good night, my dear.
Okay, I will. You too.
Bye. Bye.